The universe isn't ignoring you, it's copying you. Change the copy you're broadcasting, and watch reality flinch. Listen closely, because this isn't about luck or chance, or the roulette wheel of fate. It's about the imprint you carry when you speak, when you walk, when you decide. Not the words alone, the weight behind them. You've seen it. Two people say the same sentence. Yet one turns steel into silk while the other moves nothing. Why? Because outcomes don't follow language, they follow signal. And signal is the quiet architecture of who you are being when no one is watching. You can decorate a sentence with golden promises, but if your inner weather is thunder, the echo finds thunder. You can smile for the camera, but if your tone says, "I doubt this," the scene records doubt. Life, in its perfect honesty, develops the photo you handed it. Not a punishment, a mirror. Mirrors do not argue, they reveal. So if the image on the glass startles you, do not fight the glass. Shift the stance that stands before it. Here's the shock that softens into wisdom. Seeking can become a disguise for separation. The chase can amplify distance. The more you push the door, the more the hinge remembers you are outside. But when you carry yourself as someone who belongs in the room, calm spine, settled heart, decisions that don't tremble, the handle turns without effort. Not because the world suddenly likes you, but because the copy changed. There is an unseen ledger writing beneath your sentences how you regard yourself. When you choose, how you regard tomorrow when you plan, how you regard people when you speak. That ledger, subtle, steady, becomes the template life references. You don't have to announce it. You don't have to prove it. You simply stop arguing with your own value. You stop auditioning for a part you already live. So let this be your turning point. An interior click. You can feel. Not louder, clearer, not harder, truer. Replace the shout of, "Please notice me," with the quiet gravity of, "This is aligned." Replace the flinch with a full breath of dignity. Replace the bargaining tone with the cadence of certainty. Certainty is not noise. It is neatness. It tidies the room inside your chest until everything you carry points the same direction. And then watch how calls return. Watch how doors that were never opening tilt on their hinges. Watch how conversations shift from delay to momentum. Not magic tricks, not spectacles. Just the mathematics of congruence. When the inside stops contradicting itself, the outside stops contradicting you. Hold this line like a thread. Life copies your state before it copies your sentence. When the state is coherent, your choices, your tone, your posture, your timing, reality doesn't need convincing. It simply reflects. If words are the surface, signal is the current beneath the surface. Quiet, decisive, shaping everything it touches. You can't catch a current with your hands, but you can feel its pull. That pull is what people sense before you speak. It's why some rooms open while others close. It's why the same idea spoken by two different voices can arrive as command or as static. Signal is not performance, it is congruence. When your intention, your emotion, and your expectation line up, they stop canceling each other out. No inner jury. No cross-examination. Just a single verdict moving forward without hesitation. The world recognizes this alignment, the way a compass recognizes north. It doesn't ask for permission, it recognizes direction. Most people are trained to fix outcomes by pushing outcomes, but outcomes are reflections. Adjusting the mirror never changes the face. When you polish the surface, while neglecting the source, the polish turns into exhaustion. The hustle becomes noise, the schedule becomes a cage, and the result, no matter how busy, still feels far away. Shift the level you're working on. Let choices carry quiet authority instead of anxious velocity. Let your tone become clean instead of loud. Let patience become precision instead of waiting. You will notice how interruptions lose their power when you no longer negotiate with your own message. Distractions only win when they find a loose thread inside you to pull. Tidy the thread, the tug loses its grip. There is a mercy in this clarity. You do not have to force doors, perform for crowds, or pretend you are unshakable. You simply refuse to send mixed signals. You refuse to speak hope while broadcasting doubt. You refuse to promise yourself tomorrow what you keep withdrawing today. This refusal is not hardness. It is honesty as momentum. When your signal steadies, people feel safe around your presence. Not because you are perfect, but because you are consistent. Consistency dissolves suspicion. It turns maybe into let's begin. It turns silence into reply. It turns closed calendars into space that suddenly appears, not superstition, just sequence. What is stable invites structure. What is coherent gathers form. Remember the opening line and let it land deeper now. The world is copying you. If the copy is unclear, it isn't punishment. It's a request for a cleaner original. Stand in that request with humility, with maturity, with a kind of stillness that speaks louder than explanations. Then step forward. The current will carry you. The signal will precede you. And what used to resist will begin to arrange. The mirror of life is unblinking. It does not flatter. It does not insult. It does not invent. It returns what stands before it with precise fidelity. The posture behind the words, the quiet beliefs behind the plans, the tone behind the smile. This is why appearances can travel only so far. Polish without sincerity reflects as glare. Certainty without arrogance reflects as calm. The mirror reads the weight of what you carry, not the volume of what you claim. Consider how swiftly atmospheres change when a clear presence enters a room. The conversation steadies, the pace organizes, not because of slogans or noise, but because alignment has a gravity of its own. That gravity is not loud, it is ordered, and order calls scattered things back into place. In the same way, when our inner world is in dispute with itself, one part insisting, another part retracting, the mirror returns a blurred image, opportunities half open, timing half right. This is not a verdict against you. It is guidance for you. The reflection is information. If the pattern keeps repeating, it is not fate pitted against your steps. It is a message that the foundation seeks reinforcing, values clarified, intentions trimmed of excess, promises made to the self-honored without delay. When the source is intact, the image stabilizes. When the image stabilizes, the path ahead stops changing shape each time you approach it. There is a quiet dignity in living from what is true rather than what is trendy. Trends demand performance. Truth asks for presence. Trends change masks. Truth changes rooms. Presence does not hurry to prove itself. It lets time reveal what noise tries to hide, and time, in its fairness, returns everything to its root. What is coherent remains. What is borrowed dissolves. Notice how real strength rarely announces itself. It is felt as ease decisions that do not tremble, refusals that do not harden, agreements that do not overpromise. Ease is not laziness, it is alignment. It is the absence of inner argument. In that absence, your steps acquire a cadence that people recognize without knowing why. Doors that require shouting for some open on a simple knock for others. Not because the door is biased, but because clarity is easier to answer than confusion. Let this understanding soften the urge to force what is not ready and to chase what is not yours. When something belongs with you, it does not ask you to become smaller to keep it. When a path is proper, it does not mortgage your integrity to walk it. The mirror will show you gently at first, then unmistakably, what strengthens you and what silently thins you out. Honor the message. The cost of ignoring it is always greater than the price of patience. Hold to the opening promise. Life copies the broadcast, not just the phrase. When the broadcast is clean, respectful, steady, sincere, the return becomes clean as well. Not overnight spectacle, but reliable sequence, step by step, scene by scene. The reflection sharpens until the world around you stops arguing with the person you've chosen to be. Beneath every promise you make to the world, there is a quieter promise you make to yourself. That promise is the ledger. It records what you honor and what you postpone, what you allow and what you reject, what you tolerate even when it thins your spirit. The ledger is not dramatic. It is exact. When you keep faith with yourself, the lines add up to a presence that does not wobble. When you break faith with yourself, the numbers never quite balance, and life copying the imbalance. Returns delay, mixed signals, almosts. This is why some doors open without argument. Not because of spectacle, but because the ledger is clean. A clean ledger does not speak in slogans. It speaks in tone. Your tone is the handwriting of your soul, steady when your values are steady, unsteady when your values are for sale. People hear tone before they hear words. Opportunities hear tone before they see results. Destiny, if you listen closely, answers tone before it answers plans. Consider how quickly confusion drains away in the presence of someone who stands where they say they stand. They do not need a crowd to certify them. They do not rush to fill silence with credentials. Their restraint is not shyness, it is accuracy. Accuracy is magnetic. It tells the room, without noise, that fragments have been collected and contradictions have been dismissed. Accuracy invites alignment. Alignment invites sequence. Sequence invites results. Many chase outcomes while negotiating against their own standards, smiling at what they do not respect, agreeing to what they cannot sustain, pretending to be smaller so the moment will stay. But every compromise is an entry on the ledger, and the ledger never forgets. When the total becomes heavy with exceptions, the signal frays. The reflection blurs. The path that should have been straight begins to curve for reasons no calendar can explain. There is a gentler way, not softer in backbone, softer in friction. Speak what you can stand beneath tomorrow. Sign what your future self will not need to undo. Choose in a way that lets you sleep with ease. This is not perfectionism. It is mercy. Mercy toward your own time, your own health, your own name. When the ledger carries mercy, it returns strength. You stop leaking power into promises that never should have been made. Notice how dignity changes the air. Dignity does not require applause. It does not require a stage. It is quiet ownership of who you are and what you will not trade. Ownership turns hesitation into clarity and turns distractions into background noise. With ownership, even a gentle no carries more weight than a loud yes, spoken against your conscience. The world learns your borders, and when borders are known, trust can grow. Let this settle. Life is not punishing you when it returns the sum of your entries. It is protecting you with truth. If the total does not look like what you hoped for, adjust the entries. Edit what you allow near your focus. Refine what you agree to with your time. Retire the habits that keep writing debt into your days. Each correction is a line of integrity added back to your name. Each line steadies the tone. Each tone clarifies the copy. Hold to the opening promise. Life copies the broadcast, not just the phrase. A clean ledger broadcasts steadiness. Steadiness gathers form, and as the form gathers, you will see something simple and astonishing. What you once tried to hold with force begins to stay with grace. Not because you clutched harder, but because you finally matched what you were asking for. There is a moment before every decision when the noise quiets and the truth becomes simple. That moment is stillness, not absence of action, clarity before action. In stillness, you remember what matters more than winning a minute, more than impressing a crowd, more than speeding past a lesson that keeps returning. Stillness does not make you smaller, it makes you accurate. When the heart is unsettled, we reach for brighter slogans and faster schedules, as if velocity could replace direction. But haste is only convincing to the hurried. Life does not reward how fast you speak. It reflects how true you are when you speak. Stillness removes the wobble from your words. It lets your promises arrive as promises, not as negotiations disguised as enthusiasm. Consider how storms look from above the clouds, loud below, ordered above. Stillness is that higher view. It does not pretend the storm is gone. It refuses to be owned by it. From that height, you can see which paths are merely urgent and which paths are genuinely right. You can tell the difference between opportunities that honor you and temptations that only imitate opportunity for a moment. People sometimes confuse quiet with weakness, but quiet is where strength finishes growing. A strong tree does not explain itself to the wind. It stands where its roots are true. In the same way, a clear person does not argue for their worth. They live it. They do not chase what requires them to become less. They do not accept what trains them to doubt themselves. Their yes means yes because their no was respected, long before anyone asked. Stillness also restores proportion. It places achievement back under character, applause back under principle, and timing back under trust. When proportion returns, anxiety loses its script. You stop measuring your days by what shouted the loudest, and begin measuring by what aligned the deepest. The result is not a smaller life, but a steadier one, quietly larger, because it no longer spills itself on what cannot hold it. There is mercy in choosing pace over panic, mercy for your health, for your focus, for your name. Rushing writes debt into the ledger. Patience writes strength, and strength does not need to corner outcomes to keep them. It becomes the kind of presence. Outcomes are safe to stay with. This is why some goals arrive gently. They recognize a home that will not distort them on entry. Let this part leave one clear imprint. Stillness is not the pause that delays your life. It is the pause that prevents you from delaying your life with the wrong turn. When you move from stillness, your steps carry a weight that noise cannot counterfeit. Rooms open not because you pushed harder, but because you finally matched what those rooms require. Truth without strain. Confidence without display, resolve without hardness. Hold to the through line. Life copies the broadcast. Not just the phrase, stillness purifies the broadcast. It settles the air around your choices until even a few words travel like a full sentence. And when words travel that way, doors hear them, paths hear them, the future hears them, and answers in kind. Every person carries a radius. It reaches beyond your words and touches rooms before you enter them. It is the invisible boundary set by your character, your consistency, and your quiet regard for what is right. Within that radius, things arrange themselves. Not because you control them, but because order recognizes order. When your inner lines are straight, the world stops tilting around you. The radius is built by how you keep your name. A kept name is a lantern. It does not glare. It guides. People learn that when you speak, your words arrive with proof. They learn that when you promise, your calendar and your conduct agree. This steadiness makes decisions easier because you no longer waste time repairing what haste broke or explaining what exaggeration invented. Confusion shrinks your radius, so do half-truths, rushed agreements, and the habit of saying yes while your heart is already retreating. Each small fracture teaches the world to hesitate around you. Hesitation is expensive. It costs trust. It costs time. It costs chances that would have been simple if your signal had been clean. Repair begins where the fracture began, with a choice to value alignment over appetite and substance over display. There's a power in quiet alignment that spectacle cannot imitate. Spectacle asks for attention. Alignment earns confidence. Attention comes and goes with fashion. Confidence stays when the noise leaves. When you begin valuing confidence over attention, your goals stop looking like a stage and start looking like a stewardship. Stewardship deepens your radius because it replaces the hunger to be seen with the duty to be worthy. Notice how timing behaves around integrity. Doors open without a performance clause. Introductions arrive without a script. The path does not flatter you. It fits you. Fitting is better than flattery. Flattery swells and then collapses. Fitting grows and then roots. A fitted path does not demand that you trade your peace to keep it. It asks only that you remain honest about who you are and what you cannot endorse. Dignity expands the radius further. Dignity is calm even when urgency amplifies the room. It is firm without cruelty and receptive without surrender. It lets you disagree without becoming smaller, and it lets you agree without becoming indebted. People feel safe around dignity because it has no hidden bill. Safety creates clarity. Clarity creates momentum that does not vanish when the crowd looks away. Guard your radius with what you allow to linger near your focus. Some conversations thin you. Some entertainments leave you restless. Some ambitions borrow your name but will not repay it. Protecting your focus is not isolation. It is respect for the harvest you are growing. When the soil is clean, the yield stops surprising you. Results begin to arrive in the measure of your consistency. Hold the through line again. Life copies the broadcast, not just the phrase. Your radius is the broadcast made visible. When the radius is honest, rooms feel it. When the radius is steady, time respects it. And when time begins to respect you, the long work becomes lighter, the right people draw nearer, and the future that once wavered stands still long enough to meet you. There is an order to arrival, not an accident, not a lottery. An order, first the inner lines agree, then the outer lines align. First the voice inside stops arguing, then the doors outside stop resisting. This is the sequence. When people call it chance, they are usually standing too close to the moment of harvest and too far from the months of quiet planting. Sequence begins with clarity of motive. When motive is clean, effort is clean. When effort is clean, results stop carrying hidden costs. You no longer win in a way that asks you to lose yourself afterward. You no longer chase outcomes that require you to shrink to fit them. Clean motive gives clean momentum. It does not sprint. It does not flare. It endures. Sequence continues with proportion. Some things belong in the center, some at the edge. When the edge sits in the center, life feels crowded and light at the same time, full of noise, empty of meaning. Return the center to what is weight-bearing, truth over trend, character over display, peace over applause. When the center is right, even small steps carry far. When the center is wrong, even big steps dissolve. Then comes tone. Not the volume of what you say, the temperature of it. Calm speaks farther than pressure. Respect speaks farther than demand. Gratitude speaks farther than entitlement. Tone is a messenger that arrives before you do and lingers after you leave. It introduces you in rooms you have not entered and defends you in rooms where you are not present. After tone, there is timing. You cannot pull fruit from a branch by arguing with the season. Timing is not passivity, it is precision. It guards you from paying tomorrow's price for today's hurry. It keeps you from calling a test a failure or naming a delay a denial. When timing is honored, you stop forcing what would have come willingly a little later. You learn the difference between a closed door and a door that is still being built. Finally, there is witness, not applause. Witness, the steady record that forms around a consistent life. People may forget statements. They rarely forget patterns. Your pattern becomes your proof. It becomes the quiet testimony that opens paths without speeches, that softens hearts without persuasion, that clears misunderstandings without quarrel. A good pattern is a shield you do not have to lift. Put these pieces together and the picture stops flickering. Clarity of motive, right proportion, clean tone, honest timing, faithful witness. This is the sequence that carries you. You do not have to shout at it. You do not have to bargain with it. You meet it by becoming someone your future can trust. And when your future can trust you, it starts walking toward you faster than you expected. Hold the through line once more. Life copies the broadcast. Not just the phrase. Sequence is the broadcast arranged into order. When order returns inside, order answers outside. And the moments that used to feel like miracles begin to feel like continuity. There is a kind of proof that speaks without presentation. It does not arrive with banners or demand a stage. It gathers quietly as your days agree with your words, as your choices match your claims, as your patience holds its shape when it would be easier to perform. This proof is not a performance for others. It is the calm record of a life that no longer argues with itself. When people say they can feel something different about you, they are sensing the end of contradiction. They are sensing relief of being around someone who is not selling a mask or borrowing a tone. Relief is persuasive. It tells the room that weight has been put in the right place. It tells time that it can trust you with more because you do not drop what you ask to carry. Proof grows where consistency refuses to be interrupted by moods. Many start bright and end scattered. Many speak high and live narrow. But when your ceiling and your floor meet, when your best moments and your ordinary moments share the same integrity, the result is a presence that does not fluctuate with the weather. That steadiness is noticed. That steadiness is remembered. You will see it in small signs at first. Fewer explanations required. Fewer misunderstandings to untangle. Meetings that used to stretch into excuses end in clear decisions. The path that once felt like a puzzle begins to show a pattern. Not perfection, coherence. Coherence simplifies. It turns crowded days into ordered steps. It turns anxious urgency into deliberate momentum. Proof also reveals itself in what you no longer need. You need fewer reassurances, because your name reassures you. You need fewer arguments, because your tone carries its own evidence. You need fewer shortcuts, because you stopped trying to outrun the season that is shaping you. The noise loses its ability to bait you into detours. The detours lose their glitter. Direction wins. And when direction wins, results stop feeling like accidents. They arrive as if they were always scheduled, because, in a way, they were not on your clock, but on the calendar of your growth. What once felt delayed now looks on time. What once looked like failure now looks like preparation. The picture widens, and the pieces that never made sense begin to fit without force. Let this settle deeply. Real proof is not loud, but it cannot be hidden. It appears in the way you carry your responsibilities without bitterness, in the way you honor what is right even when no one is counting, in the way you remain courteous under pressure and clear when praise arrives. These are the marks of weight placed rightly. These are the signs that the inner copy has matured. Hold the through line again. Life copies the broadcast, not just the phrase. Proof is the broadcast made reliable. When reliability becomes your signature, doors do not need to be pushed. They recognize you. Paths do not need to be chased. They meet you at your pace. And the future, that once felt uncertain, begins to answer with a single word: confirmed. Every path of alignment is tested, not to break you, but to weigh you. The measure is simple. Will you remain the same person when the scene changes? When delays stretch longer than comfort? When praise arrives and tempts you to drift from your center? Tests do not arrive with warning labels. They show up as small invitations to compromise, as quick exits that cost more than they promise, as noisy opinions that try to rent space in your heart. The test begins when results slow down and whispers grow loud. Doubt auditions for the lead role. Impatience pretends to be wisdom. You will be invited to edit your values to meet a deadline, to trade your peace for a spotlight, to bend your word so a moment will stay. This is the crossroads where many bright beginnings dim, not because the path vanished, but because the traveler changed their weight in the middle of the bridge. Remember what the mirror returns. The world copies your state before it copies your sentiment. If your state fractures under pressure, outcomes will fracture with it. If your state stays honest under heat, outcomes learn your temperature. And hold. Endurance is not stubbornness. It is clarity that refuses a cheaper version of itself. It is the quiet decision to keep your name intact when a shortcut smiles. There is a dignity in letting time prove what you do not force. Dignity does not chase rooms that cannot carry your truth. It does not accept terms that borrow tomorrow's strength to pay for today's applause. Dignity stands where it stands and allows seasons to reveal what urgency tries to hide. When you carry that kind of steadiness, Even your silence tells the truth about you. Tests also arrive as praise. Applause can be a louder trial than criticism. Compliments try to rewrite your priorities. Success tries to expand faster than your character. Opportunity attempts to sit in the chair where principle belongs. Hold your proportions. Let gratitude be sincere, and let humility remain your guard. What began as service should not end as performance. What began as stewardship should not end as display. Watch how clarity behaves in hard hours. It lowers its voice and strengthens its spine. It chooses words that do not need to be taken back. It keeps promises even when the room forgets. In that steadiness, you become safe to trust. Safety is not softness, it is reliability. People lean on what does not wobble. Doors prefer hinges that do not squeal. Paths prefer footsteps that do not argue with the ground. When you pass the test, something subtle changes around you. Invitations become cleaner. The right companions appear, those who value the same weight in a name, the same respect for order, the same refusal to spend integrity for speed. You do not need to explain why you turned down a glittering angle. The results will translate your choice in a language everyone understands. Hold the through line once more. Life copies the broadcast. Not just the phrase. Tests refine the broadcast. They remove the echo of fear from your tone and the shine of pride from your stride. What remains is clear, steady, and unmistakable, a presence that reads as truth. And when truth becomes your atmosphere, the future steps closer without being chased. There comes a point when you stop negotiating with yourself and set a standard that does not move with weather. Not a slogan, a boundary, not a performance, a posture. This standard is the quiet line your life refuses to cross. Even when the room is restless, even when delay presses, even when applause tempts you to drift. Once the standard is set, your days stop wobbling. Decisions inherit clarity. Paths that once felt crowded become walkable again. A true standard is not loud because it does not need to convince you. It remembers who you are when memory falters. It protects your name when convenience asks for a discount. It keeps opportunities in their proper place. Gifts, not gods. You can receive them without bowing to them. You can release them without shrinking. That freedom is what steadies your voice and lengthens your reach. Standards simplify the future. You no longer waste hours debating what your heart already knows. You do not trade long peace for short noise. You do not accept terms that tax your conscience in small installments. The cost of breaking standard is always hidden at first. The invoice arrives later with interest. Honor the line now, and the future will honor you back with trust. You cannot purchase any other way. Notice how people relax around a life with standard. They understand your yes and your no before you speak. They stop testing your edges because your edges are known. Known edges do not make you hard. Safety turns confusion into order. Order turns effort into effectiveness. Effectiveness, over time, becomes a testimony that needs no stage to be believed. The standard also guards proportion. It keeps gratitude above pride, service above display, truth above trend. When proportion is kept, even success remains light in your hands. You do not clutch it, you carry it. You do not fear it, you steward it. And if a season changes, your identity does not collapse with it. What you have never owned cannot own you. There is courage in holding the line when shortcuts wink. The shortcut promises speed, but hides erosion of integrity, of trust, of the quiet respect you owe your own reflection. Refuse the erosion. Choose the road that lets you look your future in the eye without explaining why you became smaller to arrive faster. Arrival without self-respect is not arrival. It is a costume that unravels under bright lights. Let this be the imprint of this part. Set the standard and let time witness it. A standard carried long enough becomes atmosphere. Atmosphere becomes radius. Radius becomes influence that does not require noise to travel. You will find that doors answer a life that guards its lines. Not because doors are sentimental, but because order recognizes order and welcomes its own. Hold the through line, life copies the broadcast. Not just the phrase, your standard is the broadcast made durable. When durability replaces display, the path grows quieter. The steps grow truer. And what is meant for you stops hesitating at the threshold. It enters, finds its place, and stays.